Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to do something a little bit different. This is my 2024 guide to taking the ALP Essay Exam at Columbia University. Now, this video is going to be pretty long, so if you want to just kind of skip the video and reach out to me for tutoring or personal assistance getting ready for the test, I will be happy to do that, and I'll just put the contact information down in the video description. Also, if you want basically a shorter version, I'll just link to the 2023 video, which has kind of the same stuff, but it's a bit more concise. All right, so first of all, the question a lot of students ask when they're told they're going to take this test is like, what the heck is it? Well, here's a description from the website of Columbia University. It says that in the ALP Essay Exam, students must write an argumentative essay in response to two short reading passages. The passages present differing views on one topic, and you'll need to say which one you agree with and why, supporting your opinion and offering arguments against the opinion you do not agree with. The passages are general enough to be answered by a person from any field of study. It's 120 minutes long. So it's really key. I want you to note that it's an argumentative essay. That's really, really important. You're not just summarizing the two reading passages you're given. You actually have to present your opinion, your argument in response to the same topic while making use of the two reading passages. You know, the website also says that it's written by hand or on a computer. I've been prepping students for this test for like 3 or 4 years now. I've never heard of them doing it by hand these days, so that's probably not an option. Now, I do want to mention here that this is a standardized test, right? And Columbia can totally change it if they want to. So, like, they haven't changed it for as long as I've been working on it. And if you go back to the archived version of the website from 15 years ago, again, they haven't changed it, but I don't want you to be shocked if you do get something unexpected. Like maybe you'll get 3 short reading passages instead of 2. Maybe you'll get 100 minutes instead of 120 minutes. Do you see what I mean? If that happens, don't panic. Just kind of remember what you've learned in the video and basically write the same kind of essay. All right, what are some of the topics of the test, the topics of the articles? Well, these are some of the things that have come up kind of in recent memory. Standardized testing. So, you know, one article might say that standardized testing is really useful and valuable. And the other one might say, no, it's problematic. It hurts students. You know, a recent test was about the value of being a specialist versus the value of being a generalist. So specializing in one subject or knowing a lot about a variety of subjects. Recently, there was a test about prison and the value of prison. I think it was something like, you know, one of the articles was like, prison should be about punishing people. And the other one was like, no, it's all about rehabilitation and helping them once they get out. That was an interesting topic. Remote learning, you know, pretty obvious. Misinformation on social media, whether this is a problem or not really a problem. The value of attending university. Colonizing space came up twice, I swear. One of them was about colonizing Mars. And I believe one of the readings was like a couple of paragraphs written by Elon Musk before he kind of went off the rails. And of course, he said, oh, colonizing Mars, fantastic. And then the next one was like, colonizing Mars, kind of a waste of money. And then just in the last few months, they had another one. It was just about colonizing space in general. Banning single-use plastic came up recently. Kind of boring topic, but you know, something it's easy to write about. One of them said, yeah, we should ban plastic straws and forks and stuff like that. The other one said, no, that's just a complete waste. It doesn't make a difference. Autonomous cars came up recently, you know, and one of them was kind of like the purpose of jobs. Kind of hard to kind of explain, but it was like a job should be something that we use to make money and support our lifestyle. And then the other one was like jobs should be personally rewarding to us in some kind of emotional way. A little bit harder to kind of wrap your head around. But the point like here, which I think you can see, is that these are all, you know, these are all things that you can have a take on without really being an expert. And they're all really kind of ripped from the headlines, right? These are topics that everyone's talking about these days. They're very common. They're something you're going to be familiar with, if you read the newspaper now and then. They're not, they're not really specialized or too complicated. Okay, so how is the test scored? Well, this scoring guide came from a student of mine who took the ALP class at Columbia. It might be kind of old. It might not be like totally up to date, but I think it makes a clear point. Basically, you get a score from 1 to 10. Most people want to get 8 or above, because if they get 8 or above, they can basically begin their studies at Columbia without going into like a ton of remedial English, before taking any credits. And so let's kind of examine like what a level 10 essay means. And it's not too complicated. It's a standard kind of essay, right? You need to have a strong thesis statement that shows you understand the topic. Your essay should be supported by 2 or 3 body paragraphs that have examples and reasoning. And you should use relevant information from the source text to support your arguments. Critical thinking is evident. So, this is kind of like, the basic essay that you learn to write in high school. You've got an introduction with a thesis, a few body paragraphs that make supporting arguments. Now, but I do want to draw your attention to this part here that says relevant information from the source texts is selected, attributed, and integrated with your own reasoning. That means you need to quote the articles. You need to quote them and you need to reference them. Super, super important. It's even mentioned in the level 8 description, right? Just to get a score of level 8, you still need to use those sources. I talked to some of my former students and they're like, yeah, Michael, I got a score of 9. I got a score of 10. Fantastic. And all my friends with better English, they just got a score of 6 or 7. Why do you think that was? Now, I don't know. I don't know what they wrote, but, my guess is maybe those students didn't actually use the articles. They just wrote their essay with their opinion and basically ignored what was said in the articles. I think that's a big problem. Okay, moving on. You got to have an introduction and conclusion that communicates your thesis and pays attention to your audience. We'll talk about what the audience thing means later. And then here I've highlighted like some grammar stuff. And this is probably the trickiest part. To get a level 10 essay, you need correct grammar, right? You need to write an essay without a lot of mistakes. But they're also looking for what it describes as more sophisticated techniques and certain structures. Now, I've highlighted a few of them, which I think are important, and we'll talk about some of them later. But it's things like given new information flow, parallelism, fronting and inversion, appositives, noun clauses, and subject position. Yeah, these are tricky. These are things I actually had to look up. And actually, I think in the old video from last year, some of my explanations were kind of shabby. We'll get to all that later, though. And then, of course, it wants you to use a range of general and academic vocabulary, some more sophisticated, rarer vocabulary. So don't just use a lot of really basic words. Okay, so this is kind of what it means to get an 8, 9, or a 10. Now, I don't know. I guess I've worked with 30 or 40 students. Some of them do get a level 10. Maybe 5 to 10% of the students I work with get that level. It's not easy. It's pretty hard. Probably a majority of them get a level 9. And then some of the students with kind of a weaker command of the English language will score a level 8. But, I do want to encourage you, you got to pay attention to some of this stuff and use what it's asking, right? Sometimes like a student who has pretty strong English that I've worked with carefully, they'll get a lower score. And that's kind of disappointing because it doesn't really reflect their true ability. If they want to get a score that reflects their true like command of the English language, they got to do the things that are kind of mentioned here. So keep that in mind when you're preparing and when you're taking the essay. And if you need any extra help kind of mastering these things, please reach out. I tutor students for this test every time it's offered, and I will be happy to work with you. I teach via Zoom. All right, so the question then is, how long should the essay be? I mean, if the student's shooting for a score of like level 9, I generally recommend 600 words. I used to recommend longer essays. I mean, I used to go in there and be like, dude, you got to write 800, 900 words. But I've been hearing from some of my students, they wrote 600, they got a score of 9. They wrote 650, they got a score of 10. You know, some of them wrote like 400, they got a score of 8. So, I'm not totally thinking that you got to write super long essays. 600 words, maybe 700 words. That's probably enough. I mean, feel free to write more. There's no penalty. Some of my students have done 900 words and gotten a very good score. But don't feel that it's necessary. What really matters is quality instead of quantity, I believe. All right, so here's a sample article. This one is from the generalists versus specialists sample topic that I mentioned earlier. And so here you've got a short article where the author is saying it's better to be a generalist. You got a couple paragraphs here where she makes her points. You got her name, you got the name of the article, and you got where it came from. You'll probably get something like this, though it could be taken from a book instead of an article. And then here's the other passage. This one's about, you should be a specialist. And it explains why she thinks it's better to be a specialist. You get the name, the title of the article, and where it came from. So it's just the opposite opinion, right? That's how it works. The two articles have opposing opinions on the same topic. Now, I will mention that every time I update this presentation, and I've updated it like 25 times over the past few years, I make the articles a little bit shorter. What I've been hearing from students is that the articles they get on the test day are shorter than what I give them for homework. Like I've got 24 homework sets, and I'll probably have to go and revise them because I think the homework I'm giving is too long. It might even be shorter than what you see on the screen. Be prepared for an article that's just like one paragraph, maybe 7 or 8 sentences. That's not a guarantee, but it is a possibility. And, in some ways it makes it more difficult because you have less to quote from. You have less to work with from the source. Although in some ways it makes it easier because you don't have to spend a ton of time reading it. All right, so after you see those passages, you're going to get a question. It's going to look something like this. Please read the 2 passages below. The authors have differing opinions about the topic of specialization. Which author do you agree with, and to what extent? In your essay, you should support your opinion and challenge the opinions of the author you disagree with. You have 120 minutes to complete your essay. Pretty straightforward. A couple of things I will point out. It uses the phrase, and to what extent, so you don't have to agree with them 100%. If you feel that, you want to challenge the author you agree with a teeny bit, feel free. Also, you should support your opinion. That's obvious, but you also have to spend time challenging the opinions of the author you disagree with. So you're addressing both of them. You're not just addressing the author you agree with. All right, so here's my basic guide to structuring an essay. And I'm going to go into more detail in just a moment with examples, but this is the basic outline I teach everyone. I teach students to begin with an introductory paragraph, which begins with a few sentences of background information that introduces the topic. So this is coming before your thesis. It just kind of sets the stage. So if you're writing about colonizing space, you could say something like, humankind has always dreamed of living amongst the stars. As technology develops, year by year, the likelihood of this becoming a possibility increases greatly. I don't know, something like that. You see what I mean? Just something coming before your thesis that introduces the topic in a general way and does not state what your opinion is. And then I like to say something that quickly states the opposite of my thesis. So here I'll say, some people, like Elon Musk, agree that it's a fantastic idea to start a human settlement on Mars. I don't know. And then a clear thesis statement that states your own position. However, my opinion is that a long-term mission to Mars would be a waste of money and resources that could be better used on Earth. So, so you can see that right even in the introduction, I'm drawing a contrast between the two opinions and I'm addressing both of them. After that, a body paragraph. So you're going to support your thesis here by focusing on something you agree with from one of the readings. So I want the first body paragraph to be a specific exploration and a specific agreement with one of the details from one of the readings. And you're not going to be addressing the entire thing. You're not agreeing with the whole article in that paragraph. You don't have the time or the space. What I want you to do is pluck one specific detail from the article and just agree with that in the paragraph. So for example, if you're writing about specialists and generalists, you might say, I like this point about navigating change and getting new job opportunities. So I'll write a whole paragraph just about how I agree with this point regarding job opportunities. And in doing that, I will expand on the argument with additional details and reasoning that comes from, my experience, my head. And again, I'm going to quote from the reading to make my point. That's going to be the whole first body paragraph. The second body paragraph is going to be a little bit different. I want you to support your thesis by bringing up something not mentioned in the readings. So again, if you're going to be saying in your essay that you agree that it's better to be a generalist, come up with something new. Like maybe something like generalists are better equipped to handle international business relationships, and then you're going to write a whole paragraph about how generalists are good at that. And so it's new. It's coming totally from my mind. However, I do want you to quote from the readings to support that if possible. Maybe there's something mentioned in the readings that could strengthen your argument there. After that, you write the third body paragraph where you're going to support your thesis by refuting a couple of points mentioned in the other reading. So here you turn to the reading you disagree with, and you just find a couple of things that you could really sink your teeth into and specifically refute. I don't want you to try refuting the whole article. Again, you don't have time and space for that, but you do have the space to maybe pick out one detail here, challenge it, and then pick out another detail here and challenge that. Once again, quote liberally from that reading as you challenge the point. Quotes and quotes and quotes. You probably can't quote too much, I'm telling you. Just don't feel shy about that. And then you're going to write a conclusion where you quickly restate your thesis and your supporting arguments. And that's the essay. Now, you could probably stop the video now if you want. If it's getting too long, that's all you really need to know. But I'm going to go on with more specific kind of details and stuff and more specific examples. So let's start by talking about the introduction. As I said, I want you to begin with some background on the topic. I like a phrase like "they say." There's a fantastic book about writing. It's kind of geared at first-year college students called "They Say, I Say," and it has a bunch of templates which you could try. If you sign up for lessons, I'll give you some of the templates from the book. But you can use a template like "they say" and then follow it by a few sentences that put the topic into the context of modern society. Consider mentioning some trends in education, sociology, business, or world affairs that relate. Make generalizations here. So you could begin with, "They say that it's more difficult than ever for young people to make academic decisions. They know that the choices they make in university about what to study will have a profound impact on their careers for the rest of their lives." After that, as I said, state the opposite of your thesis. Some people argue that it's better to become a specialist, and that will lead to the most success. Then write a clear thesis. Something like, in this essay, I will support the idea shared by John Smith that it's a better choice for young people to become generalists. The whole introduction should be like 6 or 7 sentences, even less if you want. But you could write more if you like. Here's a sample. This one's about a theoretical essay about keeping track of changes in language, like the way we talk, and, using different words, as language changes. So I begin with, they say that people change over time and that language changes along with them. Nowadays, thanks to the spread of the internet, language seems to be changing at a more rapid pace than ever before. So that's the introduction. Oh, there's more. Rarely do we go a week without reading an article or seeing a social media post that uses a term or phrase that is totally new to us. For certain individuals, this is a frustrating experience. So that's the background that puts it in the context of society, and it doesn't give away my thesis. And then the opposite of my thesis. Many people, like Franklin Edwards, suggest that it's a waste of time to try to keep up with changes in language. And then my thesis. In this essay, I will support the argument made by John Smith that it's important to keep up with changes in words and pick our vocabulary carefully. That's an introduction. Then the body paragraph, 1. So next, you write your first body paragraph. Start with a supporting argument that proves your thesis. I want you to be obvious here. Don't beat around the bush. The supporting argument should be some specific detail you've plucked from the reading you agree with. Your job will be to expand on this. As you write the body paragraph, combine your ideas with quotations you take from the article. Quote liberally from the article you agree with. I don't know, shoot for about 180 words, more or less. Here's a sample. And I'm going to talk about why I highlighted certain things here and in the introduction in just a moment. Starts like this. Young people have better mental health nowadays because they were able to reach out for help when necessary. As John Smith indicates, 62% of millennials are comfortable with this. So this is an indirect reference. I'm not quoting him directly, but I am mentioning the author of the article and then something he said. And then I won't read it all, but you can pause it if you want to check it out. But I go on with some details and stuff that came from my mind. And then check out this quote. Smith mentions that, quote, many smartphone apps have made a lot of money connecting people with therapists, end quote. And then it goes on and on. According to Smith, quote, this is quite a shift from even just a few decades ago when sufferers of mental illness often felt lost at sea, end quote. So you can see I've got a point I agree with, that young people do better with mental health than in the past because they can reach out for help when necessary. I've got some stuff that I quoted, and I've got an indirect reference as well. So that's a body paragraph. It's not super long. I think it's like 170 words or something. I actually shortened this compared to the 2023 version of this video. There's a few things, grammar things that I've highlighted here and there and in the introduction. I'm going to talk about them a little bit. Appositives. Remember this was mentioned in the scoring guide. This is a grammatical technique, and it's kind of hard to put these things into words, but the examples should kind of make it clear. So here's an example, a complicated one, or not a complicated, you know what I mean. My father, comma, who grew up in the 1960s, comma, admits that he was uncomfortable talking about his worries even with his best friend. Here's another one. John Smith, comma, a professor at Columbia University, comma, claims that global warming is a major problem. So you can see the appositive is this part in bold. It's coming after the subject of the sentence, and it's kind of, it's giving you additional information about the subject. And the key thing is, if you delete the appositive, the sentence still works, right? The appositive is kind of like bonus information. In a different kind of essay, you would just put this in parentheses. Some people call appositives parenthetical commas, I believe, although maybe the grammar nerds out there know there's a difference. I don't know. And so the easiest one to understand is the last one. Seoul, the capital of Korea, is located in Asia. So there you go. If you delete this appositive, the sentence is still the same. This is something I want you to use like once or twice in the essay. Don't go wild with it, but show the raters that you know how to use it. Next one is noun clause in subject position. Now, I got this one totally wrong in the 2023 version of this video. This is kind of weird and complicated, and I don't even know if I have it correct here, but this is what my research indicates it refers to. So I've bolded the noun clause in subject position. So here's an example. Whatever employees need is readily available to them. So, in a traditional sentence, the subject would be help is readily available to them. Money is readily available to them. Counseling is readily available to them. But here, instead, in the subject, you've got this whole noun clause phrase thing. Whatever employees need, that's the subject. Another one, whoever is responsible for this change will make a lot of money. So the subject is this long noun clause, whoever is responsible for this change, right? So in a traditional sentence, it would be like, Michael will make a lot of money. Michael's the subject. You will make a lot of money. You is the subject. But here you've got this whole noun clause. There's other ways to do it, but I find the easiest way is the W words, whatever, whoever, whichever, when, that sort of thing. Do it once or twice in your essay to show off your mastery of English grammar. Inversion fronting is, I guess, when you take an ly adverb or any kind of adverb that normally goes right beside a verb and you stick it at the beginning of the sentence for emphasis. So when we're doing inversion or fronting, we say, rarely do people find themselves in a position where they have no one to turn to. That emphasizes rarely. Like in a normal sentence, it would be like, people rarely find themselves in a position where they have no one to turn to. Again, never had she studied so hard for a test. This emphasizes never. Like in a more traditional sentence, she had never studied so hard for a test. So keep that in mind. Try to do it a couple times in the essay. The introduction or the conclusion is a pretty good place for this kind of emphasis, I think. See if you can fit it in there. Body paragraph 2. I don't have a full example because it's basically the same thing, just like a different, a different source for your idea. So you're going to start with a clear supporting argument that is unique and unmentioned in the articles. As I said a moment ago, this one should come from your own mind and experience. Support it with your own ideas, but try to use the article you agree with. Quote it. Quote it. Have I emphasized the use of quotations? I hope I have. Write about 180 words more if you like, or less if you like. Remember you're shooting for a total word count of like 600, 650, something like that. Body paragraph 3 is going to be a little bit different, of course. In this paragraph, you will rebut the article you disagree with. I recommend starting with something obvious, like Professor James Goodine argues that, and then spend the rest of the paragraph mentioning and challenging 2 of his key arguments. Again, 180 words, more if you like. So something like, Dr. Goodine claims that young people today aren't able to cope with mental health challenges they face. He notes that, and then there's a quote, people's tensions are heightened because they feel hopeless in the face of economic challenges. He suggests that, quote, politically active teens. So here I've got a little quote. I'm not quoting a whole sentence. I'm just quoting kind of a subject or an object he mentioned, are more aware than ever of the existential threats we face as a society. However, and then I just challenged that with my own points. And then I go on to another point. With great confidence, Goodine also suggests that therapy services are far too expensive for students to access. Again, I didn't quote like a whole sentence. I'm just quoting his description of therapy services, and I'm integrating that with my own sentence. So that kind of use of long quotes that are like whole sentences and then short quotes that are just objects or phrases or whatever, that's kind of sophisticated. So I want you to try doing that as well. Anyways, then I challenged it. That couldn't be further from the truth. Thanks to programs provided by schools and employers, it is now possible for blah, blah, blah. And then I'll finish the sentence or finish the paragraph. And then there's a conclusion. Restate your thesis and supporting arguments. Yeah, you could even begin with in conclusion. In conclusion, I strongly feel it's much better to be a specialist than to become a generalist if you want to consider your long-term career prospects. This is because whatever and whatever. 3 sentences is probably enough. 75 or 100 words is sufficient. And I didn't even put an example of that in because, I don't want you to stress it too much. But if you want an example, just reach out. I'm going to end the video with the FAQ section. Every time I teach this lesson, I get some cool questions from my students, and I've compiled some of the most frequent ones here. And I'll put them in the 2025 version. So here are the questions. One of them was, should I write a title for the essay? My response is, that's optional. Most people don't. I wouldn't. Again, they ask, how should I divide the 600 words among the paragraphs? Well, you know, I guess the introduction and body paragraphs can be roughly equal in length, and then you can write a short conclusion. You know, and if one of the paragraphs is longer, it doesn't matter. I'm asked, how should I organize the 120 minutes? Well, I recommend 15 minutes for reading. I want you to really understand those readings. Take your time with them. Really wrap your head around what the authors are saying. And then I recommend 20 minutes for planning and making an outline. And you can even type up the plan like on the screen, you know, like before you write the essay, and then delete it at the end. Now, some people think 20 minutes for planning is insane. Like, I get that, you know, and if that's too much, then so be it. But that is what I recommend. You know, at least a careful consideration of the topic. I recommend 65 minutes for writing. That seems enough to get 600 words. And then 20 minutes for revising. Yes, I do recommend a lot of revision. I want you to spend quite a lot of time proofreading, fixing sentences, correcting errors. Like, Columbia's given you 2 hours for this. They expect you to use some of it for proofreading and revision. This isn't like a TOEFL or an IELTS essay where you've got like 2 minutes to fix basic mistakes. They are expecting you to fix your mistakes. This is not like a total rough first draft. They want you to fix it up at the end. I'm asked, how should I reference the articles in the essay, directly or indirectly? You recall I did both in the practice samples. You know, I recommend both, but you want to emphasize direct quotes. In fact, some people write only direct quotes and they can still get a top score. So do that if you like. I'm asked, how often should I quote or reference the articles? Like 2 times per body paragraph, maybe. You could even toss one into the introduction if you like. Don't be shy about it. I want you to use those quotes and references. Is it graded by a human or by AI? It is graded by a human. I think it's just one human, but it's not graded by AI. This question has come up a lot in the last 18 months, as you can imagine. I'm asked, are the articles always visible? Yes, they are visible above your essay, but they may disappear as your screen scrolls down. You know what I mean? So like they're images kind of, and then they disappear as you write. But then you can always scroll up to see them again. I'm asked if accommodations are available for the test. Yes, they are available, but please request them well in advance. Do not leave this to the last minute. If you need special accommodations for health reasons, if you need to have water or a bathroom break or additional time, you got to put that request in early. I'm asked, can I use the copy and paste function? Yes, you can use it within your essay, right? So you can copy and paste stuff you have written, but sadly, you cannot copy and paste from the articles, which that kind of stinks. So if you're going to quote the article, you're going to be like typing the quotes out by hand instead of copying them. Oh, well. And the last question I get somewhat frequently is, do I need a works cited page? And the answer is no. No, it's not that kind of essay. Don't worry about it. All right, so I'm going to leave you, as I leave all of the students I tutor, with some homework. If you want your homework graded by me, just send me a message. We'll set it up. Email's the best. That's basically how my tutoring goes, right? I start with a 1-hour lesson, introduces the test, kind of like this video. And then I'll do half-hour lessons where each time the student comes prepared with homework they've assigned. So I've got a couple dozen homework sets about all the common and frequent topics. Anyways, the homework is the same as I showed you before. So you've got the article about becoming a generalist, and you've got an article about becoming a specialist. Your job, of course, is to read both of them and then take a side. Write that essay, support one of them, and then challenge the other position. And, you know, I'd love to see what you come up with. I mean, even if you're not interested in lessons, maybe you can put it in the video comments. I don't know if there's like a word count limit to YouTube comments, but hey, you can give it a shot somehow. Maybe you can break it up into separate comments. I don't know. Anyways, I'm going to leave it at that, but it's always a treat to update this video, because I make big changes every year. So anyways, if you have any questions, you want to know more about the test or about what I can do for you, just leave a comment down below. I'll answer it as soon as I possibly can. All right, take care. I'll talk to you guys later.